Hi, Carol Salva here with Sidelets Education, and I was asked to produce a video and a podcast on how I talk with my older learners to help them understand how they're going to gain literacy and how they can accelerate that process by things that they do on their own, or when we are in class, when I'm reading aloud, reading to them, technology is reading to them, any opportunities that they have to engage with English text, I want them to understand what they can be doing and have that metacognitive awareness that will really boost their ability to get phonetics, to get sight words, to get more and more literacy, or at least ability to decipher text. I want them to know what they can do to speed up that process. And so this is how I explain it to them. And we get to capitalize quite a bit on the fact that we're working with older learners, and you can partner with older learners differently. I want to make sure and make that a big, I stress this to my students, so I would stress it to you, is that I can show you how to do things. I can inspire you by helping you understand how to do things, but the more you do of it, the more you'll be able to do. So I'm not asking students to try to learn to read with grade level text that is at a frustrational level to them. They can do that. They can work with that text today, right now, with our support, when they're with me, when technology helps them, when they have some kind of support. They can absolutely analyze and decode text and do things at grade level. But when they're on their own, they can do quite a bit to help get the sounds of the letters and the sight words and things. And they don't have to use grade level text to do that. They can use any text. So when they're with me and I'm reading with them, I want them to know this so that they're attending. Their job, their role is to attend anytime anything is read to them. Their job is to understand that every single day they understand more English. Every single day you're just going to understand a little bit more. And so we want to map that and pair that with opportunities for you to read so that you're getting very basic English, like I am Carol, I am a teacher, I am a student. And then we want you to, as quickly as possible, recognize the word I, recognize the word am, because you're gaining the basic English. You should be able to gain the sounds and the little words and things. So here's how we explain it to them. But it has to start with them understanding that this works together beautifully and it doesn't need to be difficult. And the more you do of it, the faster your English acquisition will come. Reading is the answer. So you'll acquire more English, you'll understand more English, and you'll recognize more English in print the more of this you do with me. So I start by showing them and reading together with them through a PowerPoint and a text that we create together. And then I show them a lot of different free resources of things that will read aloud to them. Basic English, and it doesn't have to be baby books. One of our favorite sites is News in Levels. News in Levels, some teachers get annoyed by how many ads there are because that is a free thing, but the kids do not mind ads. So that is a great website. Once kids understand what they're doing, that website they get choice. They get to pick any news article that they want, and it's leveled for them. And so I can talk a little bit more at the end of the video and in the end of this podcast on how I tell them you cannot skip level 1. You know, how I tell them to use that very easy to use website, News in Levels. So if you're watching the video, I'm going to go through some PowerPoint slides. If you are listening, I'll do my best to explain what's on the slides. So these slides are available to you. I want to shout out real quick to Voice Ed Radio, and that is voiced.ca. Voice Ed Radio, if you go to voiced.ca, you will get 24 hours a day education radio. It's pretty fantastic. My podcast is there, and I want to always shout out to those guys because they produce this show. You can get all the show notes and today's PowerPoint and all of the visuals and the video that goes along with this audio podcast. You can get all of that by going to my blog and going to the podcast page. And a direct link to that is bit.ly/BA podcast, all in capital letters, BA podcast for the Boosting Achievement podcast. BA podcast, all in capital letters. Just go to that short link. You are looking for episode 61. All right, so here's where I would get started with a class at the beginning of the year. I want to do a lesson on this, and actually throughout the year I use these slides. I just pop them into other lessons to remind students how powerful it is to read with us and to read more and more every day. So many of these slides I use later in the school year. But the first slide that I'm showing right now basically has our learning targets displayed. I always have these on the whiteboard. I have these posted somewhere in the room, a visual up on the wall for students to refer back to. Here is just a little bit of a twist on that. So I'm learning from Miss Lang, who is in Kentucky, and she is seen here annotating her objectives, but the students have a copy of the learning targets in front of them, and they are annotating the learning targets along with her. So it doesn't matter that it's not on her board because the students have it to use right in front of them. That's the point, is that it's not just in a PowerPoint screen that goes away. And she's modeling here how effective it can be with newcomers. She has 5 students in this classroom, and those are students with interrupted formal education, and she's going over character traits and and how they're going to be looking at traits, positive and negative traits in characterization. And so I just applaud Molly Lang and Jefferson County Public Schools for posting this video to her Twitter feed. And so in today's show notes, I will have a direct link so that you can watch her do that. A colleague of mine, her name is Dr. Laura Beth Escalante, just wrote a fabulous new book called Motivating ELLs, and she has different strategies in there, and I love some of the strategies that she included or things that you've heard on my podcast, like language experience approach and co-creating text. And the way that she suggests that you annotate objectives is just a game changer. So it doesn't matter if I have students in my classroom who have interruptions in education, or they don't have native language literacy, or they're brand new to the English language and their alphabet looks nothing like our alphabet and they don't read in the same direction. You know, all of these challenges that you would have as a teacher teaching a student to read or write in English. When we annotate our objectives, we're leveling the playing field. We are leveling the playing field. I'm going to show you how we do that. First of all, the student needs to have the understanding that they just need to relax. They just need to relax and understand that they will have an opportunity to negotiate meaning in their native language, with technology, with a kind friend, even if they don't have the same language. They will. We stop and turn and talk every 5 to 10 minutes, so they will have an opportunity to understand better what we're talking about. And that's super important because as a newcomer, one of the biggest things that we need to get across to that student is that they shouldn't, they need to try not to be overwhelmed. A newcomer just needs the gist of what's going on so they don't get overwhelmed. If they just understand the gist, if they're comfortable with the gist, then they will keep moving forward. They will keep attending. Again, every day they know more English. The problem is you get overwhelmed and you just shut down and you're not attending and you're not getting anything because you think I can't understand anything going on. So they need to understand that in my classroom, and this is actually best practice for many classrooms, but definitely in the newcomer classroom, they're going to be able to turn and talk and negotiate meaning less than every 10 minutes, probably every 6 to 8 minutes. we'll let you turn and talk. And what did you understand? And what do you think this is about? And what do you think we're going to do? Right there, if we do that about our learning targets, that leads to a higher that leads to higher gains in achievement for everyone, because that goes to teacher clarity. So the way that I'm differentiating in this learning target that I'm going to read to you in a moment is that I'm not dumbing down the language. I know a lot of people, I applaud people who write their learning objectives in kid-friendly language, because that tells me they understand that if it's for the students. However, I would challenge you to consider that if you write it in higher academic language than what your class owns, especially your high flyers, your top kids, then this can be a differentiated activity just going over the learning targets. Remember, our brand new student is not going to be overwhelmed, because I'm showing them in this lesson and from every day moving forward, but definitely the day we meet them, we tell them you're just in charge of attending so that you start getting the phonetics, the sounds of your new language, that you start recognizing little bitty words, that you start getting sight words, high frequency words come up over and over and over again. You will get those. And if you attend, that's your job, is just to attend and then negotiate meaning whenever we have opportunities for you to do that, which will be frequently. But I need to teach to the top of the class, and I need to extend those students as well. So I'm putting words, I'm making sure that I'm using higher academic language, not a problem for anyone in the room, because I am going to annotate these objectives and help kids understand some of this new vocabulary. So this is a perfect place to put new vocabulary. So here's what my learning targets, or my objectives, sound like today. Here they are. Today, we will analyze ways to develop our literacy and speaking abilities in English by speaking with our classmates and completing a quick write. I will use words such as accelerate, high frequency words, and I am able to. So what I've done here is created some goals for the class, where we're going to not just learn, but really think about, analyze ways that we can develop our abilities in English. And we're going to do that by talking to each other, and I'm going to have some structured conversations where when they speak, they have to analyze things. It'll be part of the sentence frames. And some of the words that are going to be in those sentence frames are like, I am able to, and words like accelerate, and words like high frequency words. I want them using language like this. But sometimes I'm going to ask the students when they come in as a warm-up just to take a look at what's on the board and see if you understand what we're going to do today. Be prepared to share that with somebody else at your table when the bell rings. Or you might decide to write something, have your students write something and circle keywords. I cite a guy named Joseph Maurer a lot in the Boosting Achievement book, because he taught me several years ago many things that you can do with your objectives, just because there's such a gain in achievement across the board when there's teacher clarity and when the students understand what they're going to do. And he was a math teacher with tons of success with low socioeconomic students and students who had never passed state assessments, but they do great in his classroom. And he's also using this as a vocabulary strategy, and as I'm mentioning, an opportunity for structured conversations using higher language. So again, I'm purposely putting these higher terms into my objectives because I want to use it as an opportunity. I'm the ESL teacher. I want to use this as an opportunity for students to use new language when they speak to each other and understand what we're going to do. So I am not dumbing the language down. So in this example, an example that I'm about to give, I've used words like analyze, develop, literacy, accelerate. And I'm going to go around, first I'm going to read the objectives to the students. Then I'm going to ask them to read with me as best they can. Now we're doing a choral read, a read in unison. So I make sure my students know this is your opportunity to practice English language and no one can hear you. No one can hear you when we all try to do it together, but I'm going to read it first. Today we will analyze ways to develop our literacy and speaking abilities in English. I'm pointing to all those words when I say that. Say that with me. Then they try to say it with me, but I ask them, have your eyes go across these words. This is an opportunity to read and get more of the sounds of English and also some of the little bitty high frequency words. I'm going to circle the word analyze and ask them, what do you think analyze means? And then if I am just going to give them some synonyms, I could tell them analyze means examine. So we might draw a little microscope. We're going to really look at something and really examine it. Ways to develop. What is this word develop? Okay, well that means grow. So we could say we are going to really examine, really take a hard look at ways that you can grow your literacy. What does literacy mean? So I just make some gestures of reading and writing, and I might draw a book and ask them to say the word literacy. And also your speaking abilities. We know how to make it look like speaking with our hands, like talking, and I might draw a speech bubble, but I want them to understand. Remember, they're going to get a chance right now to turn and talk to each other and negotiate meaning. What do you think we're going to do today? Say it in your own language. Talk to your neighbor, even if you don't speak the same language. See if they understand what we're going to do. I mean, if nothing else, they can translate this all into their language, but I want them to have the opportunity to say it in English with us, and this is going to stay up on my board. I want this, again, up on my board for them to be able to use. Also, the word accelerate. We want to speak to each other about ways that we can accelerate. I'm using gestures like go faster. So everybody say accelerate. That means go faster. Your ability to read and write and listen and understand and speak in English. So I'm the ESL teacher. I'm going to spend significant time on this because I just used it as a vocabulary strategy. And then I'm going to move on to, I'm going to provide slides in today's show notes, but I would probably show them a slide with a book and thinking, how are you going to learn to read? Again, I'm using gestures. I'm speaking slowly. I'm facing the class. How will you make it go faster? How can you do that? Do you understand how a person learns to read? So as teachers, I want to make sure you know to go back to episode 60 if you did not see it. Today is episode 61, and this is how I speak to students. But you really need the overarching ideas that we have in episode 60 about balanced literacy so that anytime you do anything on the board or in print with students, you understand what balanced literacy is and how to roll that out. It's in an I do, we do, you do fashion. So all of this that's on the board or in my PowerPoint, I'm always pointing to words. I'm always asking students to track that print with me, look at the words as I read them so that you get another opportunity to see high frequency words. And that's where I want to land with them. Of course, I'm going to start by telling them it is very important for you to get the sounds of English letters and English blends. Just at a very basic level, you need to start recognizing that letters like these, and I'll show them an M, and with a moon, it sounds like an A with an apple, it sounds like ah, sometimes it sounds like a P with a pen, and I might practice a little bit of that with the students, but I'm going to tell them we're not going to have lessons like this. We're not, because we are going to read and speak and write together so much in English every day that you are going to get a lot of these sounds. Yes, it's important for you to know that p all together makes map. That awareness, those sounds, it's important. But you're going to be amazed at how quickly those come. Now, teacher to teacher, I just want to take a break here and tell you as a teacher that I do a little inventory. I do a phonetics inventory because part of balanced literacy is that we don't just do strategies. We also teach with phonetics. And so I just don't do those lessons till the second semester because students gain so much of the phonetics with me, reading with me, and with the awareness and with the metacognitive awareness of what's going on. So I do an inventory like this. I just want to give a shout out to this reading mama, Becky Spence. She's on Teacher Pay Teacher, but she has a free reading inventory that I use, and I'll have it in today's show notes. So shout out Becky Spence. Thank you. I just do that on the first day I meet kids. And then I listen to kids read all the time in our free voluntary reading time. I go up and get close to kids, just like a whisper read. Do you want to read anything to me? And I make anecdotal notes. I make sure that they're making progress with their reading. But I don't do phonetics lessons until the second semester because they've gained so many. And there are many that they know that you don't even know they know. And they may not even know they know. But I do want them to understand that just as important as the sounds of the letters, maybe even more important for you in the short term, is that you understand the concept of high-frequency words and sight words, that you will get words quickly that you see over and over again. Let's remember that every day you're going to understand more English. Every day you're going to understand things like, I am a boy, I am a student, my name is. So there's little bitty words in there that are called high frequency that come up all the time. And those are also very important. So let's take just a regular news article like this one. I show them an article here. I'm showing one in the video called the pesticide ban. It was a pesticide ban, and it's a news article about this pesticide ban in California. So it looks very complicated. This is a complicated text that's way above the level of my English learners, but I want them to see how many high frequency words are in this article. So I highlight all those words, but I just make sure they know I'm using like my fingers, like little bitty, like pinching fingers. Like, okay, so these little bitty words, you're going to get little bitty words very quickly if you read with us. And when I say read with us, I mean anytime Ms. Salva reads and points to text, and anytime technology reads for you. And that could be YouTube with closed captioning. That can be news and levels that I talked about that I'm going to show the students. It can be Google Chrome now will read aloud for you anytime. If a buddy reads to you, your eyes need to go across the print so that you get these little bitty words, and even bigger words will become your word. So look how many in this article I show them, and it's like really half of almost everything are these little bitty words. So there are words that come up over and over again in this article: will, the, of, a, it, is, to, in, use, the, in, as, and, in, it, as, it, is, to, than, the. You know, many little words you're going to be able to decipher quickly if you read with us. And that doesn't mean you have comprehension. Remember, there are two different things going on. One is comprehension, and one is being able to decipher words. But you know what? Some of our students who are born here, who understand English perfectly, they're not very good at deciphering words because they don't read very often. And so they get frustrated. So even though they're very smart students, they might not have strong reading skills because by the time they get through a page, they're so frustrated, so exhausted that they don't even know what they read. So we want to make sure all students understand analysis, evaluation, comparing things, making predictions, comprehending why did the author write. You can do all of that right now with me if I read with you. We'll use a bunch of strategies. We'll use native language. We'll use a lot of things. But you need to get better at deciphering the words yourself. And that automaticity comes with more reading. Some people call it fluency. But I'm just telling the students, this is you reading more. It will become easier and easier. Remember, every day you know more English. And reading is not a disability. It's a lack of opportunity if you've missed some formal education or if this is your new language. Language is not a disability. We're adding something. We're giving you another language. So even if you find it a little difficult, we don't need you to do this with grade level stuff, with frustrational level text. You can do it with anything. You could do it with a cereal box. You could do it with a graphic novel. You could do it with anything read aloud to you. Just read more. Read more, and you can read more. Other words are going to start to pop up because you've seen them. Words like because, you'll see that in your classes. Words like more, you might see that in math. You might see words like dollars. I'm just highlighting other words in this article. The word develop is in the middle of this article. And if you attended with us today, and if you read with us today and you learned that word developed, you're going to see that, this isn't where you'll see it in different places. You'll see it again and again because it's just a word that we use. So some of it is little bitty words called high-frequency words. Other words are sight words because they're not really easily sounded out, but you can get those also, and you probably have some. Here, a slide that I like to show students, and I like to use as an example a lot, is the word iPhone with a picture of an iPhone. Most kids understand that. Many of your older students know the word iPhone. And they're not sounding it out. They're not going iPahoney. And they know that it's not iPahoney. Even if they don't have literacy, even if they don't speak English, they know that word iPhone. So if you ask them to think about why, it's because of multiple exposures in context. Not just multiple exposures in context, a context you care about, you own that word now. So when you see words like photograph, the PH, it will trigger quickly because you already have some background for the PH blend because you know that word iPhone. They need to understand that the way that you and I read is that we're not sounding everything out, that we own words like this. We just own a ton of them. And so everything is a sight word. Everything we have with automaticity. And then sometimes we get to a word we don't know. Like if you and I pick up a medical journal, and we might have to sound something out or use context clues or skip a word. We start using strategies. But they will be able to do all of that better the more sight words, more high frequency words they get under their belt. And the way they do that is more reading in a low stress way. So we can start from day one because we can read together. I like to show them that we have 3-year-olds who can read this word McDonald's. The word McDonald's, if you put that up for a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, sometimes they can read it quickly, especially if you've got some golden arches next to it. But they're not sounding that out. It's multiple exposures in context. And so I just want to make sure that they realize you may not even know that you have a lot of context for this new language and for being able to read it. The more you do, the more you can do. And every single day you'll know more. And if you do more of it and you don't get overwhelmed and you attend and you're comfortable with the gist and you don't just use your native language as a crutch, use it when you need it, but come back to the English once you have the gist, you'll understand more and more every day. And the more you read, the more you can read. So another really important set of facts that I give them, a slide that I give them, I'm taking from Samson's Classroom and sightwords.com. I'm using images and data from them on how much of everything that you and I read are little bitty words. So you can pick up Time Magazine, you can pick up the New York Times, you can look at the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, or the Declaration of Independence, and see that it's about half or more little bitty words. Those high frequency words that come up over and over again. They're not going to have comprehension of what they read, but they don't realize how close they are to being able to decipher a piece of text. Your content teachers are going to teach you words like chromosome, like circumference, and you are in charge of getting all the other words. Every time you have an opportunity to read in English and speak in English and follow print in English, take it. Here's another reason, another thing that is very empowering to students is seeing how many words you see in a year in correlation with how many minutes a day you read. So I have a slide that I'm happy to give you. This is also from the Boosting Achievement book, and I'm looking at the work of Anderson, Watson, and Fielding from 1998, where they're actually talking about how much independent reading a student does and where they score in percentile in terms of achievement, but I'm just focusing on how many minutes a day you read and how many words you see in a year. Because I want my students to realize if you read 1 minute, about 1 minute, like 1.3 minutes a day, really read, not fake read. If you really do that every day, 7 days a week, you'll see about 106,000 words in a year. But if you bump that up to 20 minutes a day, 21.1 minutes a day, you're going to see almost 2 million words in a year. 2 million words in a year. Of course, the more you read, the easier reading will become. And we have some students that are doing an hour a day. They're getting the text in their native language so that they understand it, or somehow they're getting the gist, and then they're going back to the English and they're listening and following the English and reading as much as they can in the English. And if they do 65 minutes a day, you see over 4 million words in a year. Over 4 million words in a year. Of course, you're going to be able to read more. And you don't have to do that. That's a lot of reading. I'd love for you to read about 20 minutes a day because you will make huge gains in your ability to read and your language acquisition. That's how you make it go faster. Do more of it. So I know I said I was going to go over news and levels. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, but I think it'd be better to do another episode where I talk about what students can read. They can read so many things from day one. They can read text we create together. They can read things like news and levels. Google Chrome will read aloud to them. But that could be a completely other episode. Or you can just look on my blog for a lot of examples of what students are able to read. So thanks very much for tuning in. And again, this is episode 61. If you haven't seen episode 60, go ahead and take a look at that so you get an overview of balanced literacy if you don't have that. Thanks to everybody in the PLN. Thanks to everybody helping me learn and grow. And please reach out if you have any questions. I might be in your area, so look at the blog. It's salvac.edublogs.org. At the bottom of every episode, I usually have where I'm going to be in the near future, or you can click on upcoming events. If I'm not going to be in your area, please bring me to your area. I am loving all the consulting around the United States and Canada, and I would love to come to your learning community and support your teachers. Okay, and those fantastic English learners that you're supporting. Thanks for everything you're doing. Go and have a great day. Bye-bye.